Recording. So, Anton, can you just explain to me what your role is and what your company is about?
Oh, sure can, Martin. So I am the director of a company called the Uni Group, and we work in the space where safety meets leadership. So what that means is that we help leaders make safety safe. So psychological safety and physical safety go hand in hand. So safety, safe to talk about, safe to engage in, safe to report about. So we're very much a leadership-focused business with a focus on how do we help leaders create psychologically and physically safe teams.
So, we are seeing at the moment more deaths on construction sites. Why do you think that is?
So what the Edith Cowan Uni study from 2003 to 2019 in relation to workplace incidents and injuries and fatalities has found is that obviously with an economic boom means more work, means construction companies grow. There's things like injection packages or stimulus packages now from the government to the tune of $1.2 billion for small businesses to engage apprentices and trainees, for example. And so what the study has found is that as the economy booms, we find, and it probably to the untrained eye would make sense. We'd say, okay, so we're doing more work, we've got more businesses growing, and we're going to have more workplace injuries. I think in one way it makes sense, and in another way it's just uncool, and it's just something that we shouldn't accept as a society. And I think that there's an opportunity for those construction businesses to really be having a think about, what this means to them and what they can change to reverse that trend of as their work goes up, so does workplace injuries.
Okay. So, as we've seen over the last 12 to 18 months, COVID has impacted a lot of industries, but obviously construction's been able to get more. Is this an implication of why we're seeing more fatalities within our construction sites?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because COVID, strangely enough, so if you have a look at, let's say, for example, 2019 workplace fatalities to 2020, they're almost identical. They're 183 and 182 respectively. So we actually didn't see last year a rise in workplace fatalities around Australia, which was interesting. My gut feel was I predicted that workplace injuries and fatalities would go down last year because there was less people out in the workplace and there was less work getting done, although there was still some construction getting done. So what are we seeing? We're seeing now studies done to show that it's really around these occupational injuries over the last 16 years that have skyrocketed. And so for every 1% growth in the economy in the construction industry, we see 0.2% increase in injury rate. So there's this real correlation between work going up and injury rates going up. And the good part is that we haven't seen a fatality increase, especially over the last 2 years, thank God. And this year to date, the actual numbers are, as of 13th of May 2021, we've had 34 workplace fatalities. At the same time last year, 13th of May 2020, we had 86. So we're significantly down this year. So that's a really positive trend when we talk about trend lines.
With technology obviously getting better as the years go on, does safety systems get better as they're going on? So what implications should be, what safety systems should realistically be implemented onto these construction sites?
And it's a great question. So has technology changed safety? Yes, in a number of ways. The first thing is, say, the mining industry where, we've got driverless trucks. So at the end of the day, maybe we should be seeing a reduction in incident and injury rates in, say, a mining industry when there's a boom, which is actually what we have seen for the mining industry. And when there's an economic boom, and even though the mining industry has to ramp up and produce more, we still see a reduction in workplace incidents and fatalities in mines during economic booms, which is what that study found from Edith Cowan Uni. Now let's have have a look at the other side of it. So now in construction, has technology changed safety? Well, it has. There's so many little apps, there's so many things online, there's so much data, there's so much information, potentially too much for construction businesses to tap into. And they could use that to help keep them and their teams safe. Now, it's as simple as a safety management system sometimes, or a safety management plan that doesn't have to be detailed for the construction site. It's communicated to everyone on site to say, and I'll give you some of the big words, some of the big ticket items that we need to be thinking about from a systems perspective. And you can do some of this work online. You can have a tablet out there on site where you do, here's 2 words for you, risk assessment, or job safety analysis, or a take 5. There are these tools and systems that even little construction companies can implement quickly and easily that will really help their teams understand the implications of their behaviour and the risks associated with the work they're doing, so that if they don't mitigate this risk, this is what could happen. So the risk is on the ladder. I'm working on a ladder. The consequences is I fall, I could have a permanent injury, if not, fatal injury. And so the control is whether we work off, an EWP or a scaffold, or we tie the ladder off, or we have a fall restraint system. So these are the conversations that come out of risk assessment systems, Mark. So it's about how do we systematize safety even on a construction site, and not do it over the top. Like, I know construction would say there's too much safety, there's too much paperwork, and I get that. There is a happy medium. We've written safety management plans for little construction businesses that are building just a house. And we say to them, great work, well done, you might have just saved your life during this process.
Okay, so with training obviously is a massive part of any job, especially in construction. Has OHS training developed over the years?
Oh, absolutely, and thank God. There's, when it comes to doing work out there, there's things like working at height, there's things like ladder safety. There's some businesses have what's called a competency to operate. So, and these are large organisations, obviously, that have time, effort, and money. In fact, it costs money. So, let's say, for example, training how to drive a vehicle on site. Now, you might have a driver's licence. You've still got to go through what's called a competency to operate to drive on that particular site. And the reason is there's speed limits on that site. There might be mobile equipment on the site. There might be, pedestrian strategies on the site. So that the pedestrian crossings might not be relevant on a site where we're working. And so, not only is there training, there's also competency training or competency assessment once you get to a site. So let's take workplace fatalities for a second. And let's say, okay, there's more fatalities in the transport, postal and warehousing industry than any other industry. The second one is construction, and the third one is agriculture. So let's say the transport industry, for example, or let's say warehousing, where you've got to have a forklift license, or you should have a forklift license before you drive a forklift. And so I wonder how many people out there in warehousing are driving a forklift unlicensed. And when you do that, you're putting yourself at risk because you just don't know what the machines are capable of, and you haven't had a conversation with the trainer who can say, hey, watch this or watch that, or be careful this, be careful that. So training is so relevant just on forklifts, just on an elevated work platform, or scaffolders have got to have their licensing these days. There's a whole range of training that really confines space. And some of these licenses and training programs have to be updated every 2 years, Mark. So that's how important the training is in some of these areas. So, training in workplace health and safety, so important. And we need to keep a register of that. We need to, when people come into our organisation, we need to identify what training they need. So if they're going to be required to drive a forklift, well, let's not ask them to drive a forklift until they've got the training to do so. So, training is very important.
Okay, final question. What do you think needs to happen within the agricultural industry, or not agricultural, construction industry, to see deaths to hopefully become less than 10 a year?
Oh, absolutely. Let's even aim high. Let's say 0 a year.
Yeah.
Because one's too many, as you know. And the challenge is that we talk about them as stats. And see, I've had a bad workplace injury, so I got blown up in a switchboard as a 21-year-old. And I know what it feels like, and I probably should have been killed that day at work, which is why I'm a little bit interested in workplace and passionate. So what do we need to do? And one's too many. I'll tell you why one's too many is until it's someone close to you, it's only a statistic. When it's someone close, workplace safety gets a whole lot more important to people. I send my kids out each day to work, and I hope their leaders care for them as much as I do, because if they do, they'll do what it takes to prevent them from getting injured. Now, how do we go from 2020, 182 to 2021, 0? Well, that's not possible because we already have 34, which is okay. We'll say no more for this year. Systems, mindset, leadership. Systems, mindset, leadership. Systems, got to have good safety systems. We've talked about that. Mindset. There's this whole rush in construction, Martin. There's this whole other priority rather than safety. And those priorities are time, schedule, quality. And I get they're important. I really do. I've been a project engineer. I run a small business. I get time. I get quality. I get schedule. I get cost. At the end of the day, though, I'm not willing to make those a higher priority than my team's safety. So the mindset is around what's your priority? Is your priority workplace health and safety, or is you getting the job done quicker and just taking the risk that you've got to do to get that done? The third one is leadership. Now, leadership and safety is so important. I'm going to tell you why. It's because leaders out there are at the front line. They're on the job site. They're there. They have the ability to impact workplace health and safety. Leaders have the ability to make it safe, to stop and say, hey, I don't have the gear to do this, I don't have a license. And people are afraid to speak up. That's why we say we want to make safety safe, safe to talk about, safe to engage in. And leaders need to create psychologically safe spaces for their teams to come to them and say, hey, I don't feel right, I don't feel safe. And so when we talk about what's going to drive these workplace incidents down to 0 and fatalities to 0, we're talking systems, we're talking mindset, we're talking leadership.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Anton. That's muchly appreciated for your time today. I understand that you are very busy throughout making sure that safety and everything is in the top priority.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thanks for having me, mate. And thanks for making the public discussion, because it really needs to be. And again, a lot of people will be touched by workplace fatalities over time, and it's not until you are that it becomes real for people. And I just don't want to see anyone's kids, anyone's brothers, partners, significant others injured at work. I love your goal. How do we reduce it to say 10? Well, let's reduce it to 0, and let's do what it takes. Let's be committed, not just interested. A 0 target.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. See you, mate.
See ya. Bye.